Yo, what's up guys? We got a balance patch for Deadlock today. I'm just going to get right into it. I'm not going to cover every single little thing because the video is going to be way too long, but I'll cover the important stuff so everyone's up to speed. Like and subscribe if you like this type of content. So to start, weapon investment in general got kind of buffed, and this is definitely to kind of motivate people to play weapon builds more because the meta has been kind of dominated by Spirit recently. After that, it says applying CC to an enemy is reduced in duration when affected by other CCs in a short interval. It kind of gives a specific example here, but basically, if you've been CC'd recently, any further CC in the next 7 seconds, I believe, yes, 7 seconds, will be reduced by kind of a percentage based on how much you've been recently CC'd. This is just to kind of make sure you don't get CC locked forever. I mean, you still can get CC locked, but it won't feel as bad, especially if you have something like, to stop or reduce the duration of those CCs. Matchmaking updates to include more considerations for balanced rosters. This is essentially, I believe, just trying to say that it's going to try to prioritize the game in a way where one team doesn't have like 7 carries and, the other team doesn't have like 7 tanks. So I think that's what this means. This is kind of interesting. I tried testing it. It's kind of noticeable, but unless you're like a super kind of movement oriented player, or you're not going to really notice it too much. There's a couple changes like this actually in the patch where you can shoot much quicker now while jumping or after jumping. But however, even though you can do that, you get an inaccuracy period for a little bit after jumping, so you're not going to be like dead accurate. Wall jumps also cost 0.5 stamina. This is a nerf to a lot of different champions, especially champions that like staying in the air for a long time, like Lash, which is funny because Lash also got nerfed in a bunch of other ways. And reduce corner boosting velocity by 20%. This will just essentially make you go not as far and not as fast when you're corner boosting. And if you don't know what corner boosting is, just Google it. It's like a movement option you have. Mid-boss base HP reduced, which is, not reduced, increased, which is probably good. Sometimes you can take mid-boss really into like super early into the game, which doesn't feel right. And this is also really important. Second, mid-boss rejuve credits went from 4 to 3. So now the first 2 mid-bosses will each give you 3 credits. I kind of wish that they made the first mid-boss give 2, but clearly they weren't down, so that's fine. Dropped unsecure sold bags now require heavy melee. So this is something I just played a couple games and I noticed it. The soul bags kind of now like hover above the ground. They're not touching the ground, which looks a little weird. And to actually secure them, you have to heavy melee them, which of course means that somebody could parry the bag to kind of stop you from taking it. So that's going to add another layer of fighting, I guess, to unsecured soul bags. Speaking of which, soul urn carriers now don't get as much movement speed when carrying the urn, but instead they get bullet and spirit resist. I think that makes a little bit more sense. This will essentially make it so that the soul urn kind of is more of an objective that you can fight for, and because the person isn't going to just like instantly the bonus movement speed got cut in half. So that person who's carrying the soul urn isn't going to be able to just straight up book it to the deposit location and just submit it or turn it in before you can even do anything. But instead they'll get some resistances. So if they get caught up in a fight, they have some safety. And along with that, you also take more damage if you hold on to it for too long. Next, they added an extra boon level. Now, this one's interesting. I'm not sure why they would do that or exactly what this does for the, scaling of the game. But it essentially means that you'll get another, layer of stats and another ability point at this 12th, what do you call it? Or not ability point, sorry. One of the, it is called an ability point, I believe. So you'll get another one of those in between this 11.6 and 13.2k mark. So people technically should be scaling early, at least the ones that scale with levels. So maybe this is to speed up how fast games go. I'm not sure exactly. If you guys have any idea, let me know in the comments down below. After this, we have neutral shop no longer gets disabled if an enemy is nearby. Doesn't really matter. Distance to attack walkers is barely reduced. That's fine. And this is just kind of a nice, quality of life fixing type stuff. Enabled input buffering for shooting, dashing, meleeing, and parry. So this is something that's actually in a lot of other MOBAs. And essentially what this means is if you do one of these things, for example, if you're in the melee animation and then you press parry, this will allow you to parry before your melee is even done. And it won't actually do the animation before your melee is done, but what it means is you can instantly parry because you are able to queue up a parry right after your melee ends. So this is definitely going to change up the mostly, like obviously it's going to be useful for shooting and dashing movement, stuff like that too, but it's going to really kind of add a different dynamic to melee and parrying. So we'll have to kind of just see how the community kind of uses this and how much of a change it is. This is like pretty massive though. For Abrams, he got kind of a nerf, kind of a buff. Basically, they reduced his spirit scaling, which essentially means that that spirit build he kind of has isn't going to be as good, and instead just made it a flat ratio on Siphon Life. And then also they gave his shoulder charge a bullet damage per shot rather than weapon power. And it says this results in a weaker follow-up melee hit. For Billy, they kind of just added footsteps to one of his animations and then also reduced his move speed and instead gave it to Blasted, which I think is fine. He should be fast when Blasted is on, not just, by itself, because Billy is really strong. Calico got a bunch of buffs, like kind of across the board. Her Gloom Bomb's radius was increased, base bullet damage was increased. She can be Ava for a little bit longer, and Leaping Slash height was increased, which actually means, I believe, this is not like how far you can go, but how far above or below you can hit someone if you're not right on the target. So this will kind of make it more forgiving if you're trying to use Leaping Slash at different vertical heights. Similarly, Return to Shadows also got buffed as its radius is bigger and the cooldown is less. Calico is pretty crazy probably. Doorman got this is probably the biggest quality of life change in the whole patch. I'm not sure exactly how much they fixed it, but the placement for doors is very like wonky and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So hopefully now it's more steady and you can place the door in more places, and it improved performance. Obviously, like the door caused FPS hitches and stuff, so hopefully that improved too. Drifter, I don't play a lot of Drifter, so I'm not sure how much of a big change it is, but the sound I know when he's going to use the right when he uses the teleport, you get like a sound now, which is going to be really nice, as well as this ambush cast delay, which actually got increased. It was at 0, but so you can mark someone and you instantly take it, but now you have a little bit of time before you can take it, essentially probably just making it so that people have more time to react to it. Dynamo, I don't know how much I like this because Dynamo, I think Kinetic Pulse is already pretty strong, but I guess he's not picked that often, so they thought he needed a buff, but now it's harder to jump over it, basically. And he also gets better healing on his Rejuvenating Aura, scaling with the Spirit. Great Talon, I'm sure a lot of people will be happy with this. His damage, basically, especially his scaling damage, got reduced for his charge shot, which is going to be absolutely amazing because a lot of people hate that. Just 2 arrows and then a bird and you're dead. That doesn't really feel good. Sometimes 1 arrow. Ivy kind of got overall nerfs too. Ivy has been in the meta quite a bit, and you can see her base bullet damage got reduced, but her spirit scaling per boon overall got buffed. So maybe they're trying to make it so that she leans a little bit more into spirit rather than her gun build. I'm not really sure because as you can see, this Kutsu Bomb also got nerfed at the same time. So don't really know what they're doing with her. Maybe they're just trying to bring her scaling of all types of builds down a little. Overall, though, she's still going to be fantastic, by the way. Kelvin, I think there has been a bit of a rise of bullet Kelvin, so they're going to reduce that by nerfing his base bullet damage and clip size, and to kind of promote people to go spirit, they're buffing his spirit power per boon. Lady Geist, not really seen ever, so they're buffing her Essence Bomb, which I wish they would do something else with her, because like that's the most annoying ability she has, but that's fine. Lash Ground Strike got kind of, if it was just one of these, it'd still be fine, but they kind of like triple nerfed it, which feels kind of bad. The range is less, which if you guys don't know, Lash's range has been reduced for multiple abilities multiple times. His ult, his Lash, even his 2, I believe, and now Ground Strike is next. And of course, the cooldown went up by 2 seconds, and the damage went down. So it just kind of got nerfed in every area, which feels weird, but maybe he's really strong and they want to nerf him, that's fine. Mina got kind of an interesting change, and she can now do a kind of a hover animation if you hold right click while in the air. Like, you don't have to be using an ability, it's just like a mobility tool. You can just kind of slowly float down instead of just dropping. And along with that, the biggest thing is that they made it so that you get reduced damage when you are hitting objectives, which is massive, because if you've seen a Mina take walkers in like 1 second, you'll know why this needed a nerf. And Rake instead kind of moved. I'm not sure if this was a buff or a nerf. They took the healing off of Rake and lessened it until you get the tier 2 upgrade, which then gives you a spirit scaling on the heal by 1.0. So essentially, I think it equals out to the exact same. And then tier 3 damage got increased by 1%, the missing health damage, I believe. So it's going to be a pretty powerful ability, I think, if it wasn't already. Mirage, we don't really care. Moen Krill seems like he got a bit of an overall nerf. His bullet damage kind of got increased, which is interesting, but that's fine. No one really plays Moen Krill for the bullet damage. But his burrow bullet resistance got reduced, his combo duration got reduced, and then his combo tier 2 duration, which increases how long the combo lasts for, also got reduced. Paige got a bunch of changes. The main thing here is her support build, which uses defend and fight a lot, got nerfed. So it's from 5 seconds to 7 seconds, the duration, I should say. And the cooldown went from 26 to 30. So that is significant nerf. Maybe not like huge. It's not going to kill her or anything, but it's nice. And this will make laning as Paige a lot better. The bullet projectile being increased by 15% because he has a hard time securing souls. And after that, Rallying Charge also got nerfed, which with its damage and healing being reduced, but now it actually increases the further the horses go. And I believe it's at 350 meter, it gives you basically 100%. So it gives you double the healing and the damage. So I think overall it is probably a nerf because you're not really using the Rallying Charge at 350 meters, but if you do happen to hit those long range Rallying Charges, then technically it's a buff, along with the spawning time being reduced, which means if somebody's right on top of you, it's going to be more likely to hit them. Next for 7 got some interesting changes. I'm not sure exactly how much this is. The Power Surge Spirit Power scaling was reduced by 10%. That seems like a lot. I'm not going to do any math right now, but that seems somewhat significant, especially because the best 7 build right now basically is his Power Surge build. And meanwhile, the static charge tier 2 range of the static charge got reduced by just 1 meter, which is not a huge deal, but it is what it is. And then 7 Storm Clouds, Lightning Strike damage, and Spirit Power got reduced, which is fine because you don't really use that for damage too often anyway. It's more so you use it to keep people who are running away, like push them back into your ult. So that's not a huge deal. Victor got a bunch of changes, and they seem like overall they were focused more on, I'm not going to go through every single change, but it seems like they were focused more on making his self-sustain not as powerful early or mid game and kind of making him better late game. I don't know if that's the kind of change he needed, especially because he already is pretty weak early in mid game and then really kind of scales up late game, but maybe that's just what they want for him. They want him to be like a late game monster, so that's fine. He's just going to be kind of mediocre like he was before. He can be good, don't get me wrong, but yeah. Vindicta got a lot of good buffs. Basically her base bullet damage went up, and her flight damage went up, and her assassinate damage went up, along with the cooldown being reduced. She got a lot of buffs across the board, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's meta. Although, I will say she had one of the lowest win rates in the game, but I think that's not because she was necessarily bad, but she's just extremely hard to play. But like I said, maybe she'll be really good, who knows. Viscous kind of got his alt fire nerfed because, well, the base damage got nerfed. The damage growth did get buffed, so maybe they just, want him to be not as annoying in the laning phase super early, along with the splatter also being buffed. But splatter tier 1 increased from, so this got nerfed by just 0.25 seconds. It's not a big deal. Viper got a lot of buffs, and I kind of read through this, but it's hard to tell what they're trying to do with her. It seems like they want to make her really strong in the mid game, because right now, if you don't know, Viper is like really good if she's with a poking laner early game because of her targeted ability, her 2, which kind of has a lot of execute damage on it. But in the mid game, she kind of falls off really hard, and in the late game, she's a monster again. So it seems like they kind of want to pull her up in the mid game where she's really weak, and that's kind of what all these changes aim to do. Warden will kind of just have less spirit scaling on his ult, which every Warden build pretty much just relies around his ult, along with his fire rate spirit scaling increasing, which is kind of nice, but he doesn't shoot that much, and I don't think like gun Warden or hybrid Warden is really going to be a thing, but maybe that's what they're trying to do with him. Red got some okay buffs. So basically what they did was they lowered her bullet damage growth per boon, which sounds really bad. But Wraith's weak part is her early game. She's like super weak early. She does almost no damage. And what they did here was they increased card trick to 0.7 instead of 0.75. Not a big deal. But they lowered her they increased her base bullet damage from 5.115 to 5.4, meaning she's going to do a lot more damage early. And obviously, she won't scale as hard, but this is fine because she scales with items more than her base bullet damage growth anyway. So I think this is going to just make her overall better early, and she's already pretty good late game. So this is pretty overall a buff for her. Next, we're getting to some items, and I'm not going to read every single item, but we'll just go over the important ones. Headshot Booster is very popular. It got a little bit nerfed. Backstabber is really strong. It got slightly nerfed. Mystic Shot is also kind of popular, although not super popular, so I don't know if this needed a nerf, but whatever, it's 5 damage, right? Cultist Sacrifice got multiple nerfs, almost said buffs, with its fire rate being reduced, health being reduced, and the cooldown on the item itself being slightly increased. So this is probably good because almost every character in the game built this, so this was probably needed. And I'm not sure how much it'll be used now. I think it still will be, but I guess we'll have to see. Next, Blood Tribute got a buff, but I don't think this item is very usable mainly because of the healing reduction you put on yourself, but 30% is still a lot, so I don't know who's going to build this. Tesla Bullets Capacitor being improved with cooldown reduction is kind of nice. I'm not sure how much it'll benefit because the characters that tend to build Tesla Bullets and Capacitor don't really build cooldown reduction unless you're talking maybe like 7 or something, but we'll see. Spiritual Overflow grants now cooldown reduction instead of ability duration when you proc it. Extra health got buffed, which is huge because I already think extra health for an 800 soul item is really strong, and it actually got 10 more health, so that's great to see. Next, weapon shielding and spirit shielding got buffed. Weapon shielding threshold was reduced, meaning you could proc it easier, and the move speed for both the items were improved. Spirit Lifesteal also gives 6 spirit power, which is really nice because a lot of the characters that build it like the spirit power, so of course it's great. Rebuttal also grants 18 melee resistance, and I think this is going to make it really important to make sure to build Rebuttal. It's a super cheap item, and if you're against, those super melee heavy lanes, like maybe you're against Billy and Abrams or something like that, like this is, you kind of have to buy it. It's a no question buy now. Veilwalker also got a bunch of nerfs, and if you don't know, Veilwalker was very meta, so it most likely needed all these nerfs, including the cooldown being increased, the heal being reduced, and whatever else they did. Counterspell got a very, very minor nerf. This item is still really good. I'm not sure if it's going to get nerfed further. I think it should, but maybe, who knows. Majestic Leap got kind of a nerf. I'm not sure. It says boons 10 scaling, so I'm not sure if it's going to give you more barrier later in the game or not, but it seems like it's going to go from 350 to 140 early game, so it's definitely an early game nerf for sure, but I'm not sure if late game it'll be better than 350, but who knows. The reason it was so good was because of the 350 health super early into the game, which made it an excellent item, so overall it's probably a nerf. Spirit Resilience also got buffed, which is interesting. I think this item was like one of the most built items in the game, so I'm surprised it went from 25 to 30, but that's fine. And we have some other minor changes to Unstoppable, which went up in duration from 5 to 5.5, and Colossus, which had its radius increased, and Spellbreaker, which actually got a little bit of a nerf, so that's interesting. Rusted Barrel keeps getting buffed, but no one builds it still. I'm not sure what they're going to do with that item. And then we got a couple other, we actually got another set of nerfs to Cold Front. I believe it was also nerfed last patch, and now it does even less damage and has 1 more second on its cooldown. It remains to be a really good item, and I'm sure people will still buy it. Quicksilver Reload got kind of a 10 damage nerf, which is kind of significant only because 10 damage is a lot, especially because this is an item you buy early game to kind of harass your opponents, but that's fine. Silence Wave got a minor nerf. Spirit Snatch got a minor nerf also. Actually, melee damage reduced from 10% to 7 is maybe actually a little bit more than a minor nerf. That's interesting, especially because this item is very niche and only very specific characters can build it. So I'm not sure if I agree with that, but that's fine. Greater Expansion, Spirit Resist got increased because I think this item isn't bought very often on a lot of characters, so they want to, I guess, give more people a reason to buy this item. And then Spirit Burn, if you proc it on a minion, it goes on half a cooldown, which is really nice because some characters straight up couldn't buy this item because they would proc it on character or on minions and would have to avoid hitting minions, which is just feels weird. So this is a nice change. Anyway, that's about it, guys. I'll leave a link to the whole patch notes in the description below so you guys can take a look at it for yourselves. I actually kind of did end up going through all of it, but, you know, in case I missed something and you want to look at it yourself, feel free to. And remember, if you guys want more content like this or more Deadlock content, like and subscribe.